Let's have a gripe session. And no better person to hear about all of our gripes when it comes to church curriculum than somebody who actually writes church curriculum. Michael Kelley is back on the show. Michael from Rooted. How about that introduction? I bet you've never had one like that before.
I have not, but it is stellar, and I'm ready for the gripe session. It's gonna be great.
Well, this is our own content, and there are some things that people complain about. Maybe they have some legitimate complaints when it comes to some of the curriculum. We're going to walk through that here in just a moment. But before we do, don't forget to go check out experiencerooted.com/church answers. This is the curriculum that you want to use. Maybe you have gripes about your current curriculum. If you have gripes about Rooted, don't call Michael. Don't do that. Of course, there's no gripes about Rooted because it's an awesome experience. And you want to go see what they have to offer. We're going to be hearing from Michael about all that he has to say here in a moment. But experiencerooted.com/church answers. Got some free resources there. And I know you're going to want to learn about curriculum that you won't complain about, and that would be Rooted. That was a really bad sort of ad spot for you, but since you're on the show, you can kind of correct me and set the record straight, I guess.
No, man.
But
that's great. It's great. I think they will not have any complaints about it. So I affirm your ad spot.
It's good stuff. What you guys do is really solid.
Thank you.
But I do want to get into this because I think there are some legitimate complaints. And let's start with one that I know gets thrown around a lot. And the first gripe is it's too shallow. So, Michael, what would you say? Not about Rooted, but just in general, is curriculum too shallow? Or are the people that complain in that way, are they correct? Do they have a point?
They may be. I've heard this a lot. And I think the first thing that I would say to that, if somebody said it to me or wrote it to me directly, is, well, tell me what you mean by that. Because shallow, it can mean a lot of different things. Do they mean this is shallow theologically? Do they mean it's shallow intellectually? Do they mean it's shallow relationally? So what do they mean? And I think asking that question also helps expose the opposite of that question is, well, what you say you want depth. What do you mean when you say depth? More times than not, I feel like what people mean when they say depth has something to do with an emotional kind of feeling that they get when they're in a small group, which is not all bad. Emotions are not necessarily all bad things. But I think that's what I would say is help me understand what you mean when you say shallow. And maybe that's also a helpful tool, like for a church leader who's listening to this, who catches the end of that complaint, is not to make an assumption about what it is that they mean when they say shallow, but to dig a little bit and try and expose something, pop the hood a little bit and expose something there.
Yeah. Anytime anyone makes this complaint about my preaching or anything that we're doing at West Bradenton, I just hand them a Word biblical commentary. And I'm like, here's depth. Yeah. If you want depth, read this. It's really, it's obviously Word is a wonderful tool. It's highly technical, right? So when I hear that complaint, that's what I automatically think is somebody just wants like highly sort of technical material. And frankly, while there's a place for that and it's very much needed, it's probably not a good way to write curriculum.
No, or preach for that matter. I mean, it's really not, I mean, I think in both of those instances, what you want to do is forge some kind of deeper connection, not necessarily with you as the writer, but with the person who's using the curriculum with the biblical text. Like you want to forge that connection to do it. And oftentimes, something that's purely academic like that doesn't really create the kind of connection that people think it's going to create. I like that response. I like the hand them a word and see what they do with it.
That might be a bit snarky. I would not recommend you do that. I'm being a bit facetious there. Um, but that's certainly one gripe. It's too shallow. This other gripe is, I think, a bit. If I had a spectrum, this would be on the other side of the spectrum, which is it's not relatable.
Mhm.
It may be too technical. It may be too dry. Maybe there's not enough personality here. As a writer myself, I like flavor. I like
Yeah.
spice to my writing. I want people to remember it. I want it to be something that people enjoy reading. In my view, if you're reading something that I have written and it is a slog, maybe it's deep, but it's just a slog, and you're not connecting. And man, like, this is hard. I don't think I've done a good job there. So for me, this is something that I take to heart when I'm writing. And I've not written a lot of curriculum, not nearly as much as you have. I've written some. I want my writing to be relatable. And so when people say it's not, that's something that gets my attention.
Your illustration about seeing it on a spectrum, I think, is really helpful. It is kind of the opposite end of it, right? I think Robert Frost said, "No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader." And I think that's beautiful, man. You should feel it. Like, you should feel it convictionally as somebody who's producing it. Now, that being said, I do think that in as much as a writer can try to do all those things, be creative, bring some flair, some spark, through illustrations, different things like that. The nature of curriculum is still that it's going to be a book. It's just it's a book, right? So when I hear that, it may be a cause to evaluate the curriculum, but it also might be a chance to examine who the leader of the group is that's using that curriculum. So when you mass produce something, whether it's a book or a Bible study, whatever it is, it's just it's an impossible task to make it completely relatable to everybody that's sitting in the group. That's sort of the job of the person who's leading the class. That person, I believe, ought to be reading and studying and have pictures of people's faces in their minds. If I read this line, what will so-and-so, what will this do to them? So it becomes sort of a filter to make it more relatable when the group leader is an actual human who knows the other actual humans in the group. They're not just reciting what's written there. They become sort of a translator, and they can make it more relatable to the people.
That's an excellent point. That the group leader is kind of the connection point between depth and relatability.
Yeah.
And good curriculum will enable the group leader to do that. So I really like what you're saying there. We may be expecting too much of our curriculum if we think that it can do everything, because it's just a tool, right? It's just a tool to further what you want to do in your group.
I mean, worst case scenario is, you could say, again, nobody would probably say this out loud, but the worst case scenario is that somebody has the mindset where they're basically outsourcing discipleship to curriculum. Like, curriculum, do this, and that's an abdication of our role as Christians to make disciples. Anyway, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. You were moving on to another criticism.
Listen, we're talking to Michael Kelley, the executive director of the Rooted Network, curriculum expert, and an excellent writer. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode that you were on. I have been following your stuff for a long time. You wrote tough questions, right? What was it? Tough sayings of
right.
Jesus.
That was a long time ago.
And I just remember reading that, going, man, I created a whole sermon series out of it.
That's great.
So I took that curriculum and made a sermon series. I absolutely loved it. I believe it's out of print. I don't think anyone can get that anymore.
Probably.
It's sitting in a warehouse somewhere. There's a few of them sitting in a warehouse somewhere in Nashville. So if you do see that somewhere in some bargain bin, pick it up. That is really, really good stuff. So it's too shallow. It's not relatable. Now, this one, I think the gripers, the people who gripe, have a point. It's poorly written.
I agree with you. It's tough to it's tough to defend that if it's just poorly written, if it's not done well, and if it's not edited well. I mean, there should be like a minimum level of expectation, I think, that people have, and sometimes that's just the case. It just is apparent. There wasn't a lot of care that was taken when you were putting this together.
You can tell when it's been rushed.
Yeah.
When something has a publication deadline,
yeah.
and it was quickly done. You can usually tell. Now, I want to push into this a little bit because there's this thing called artificial intelligence. And it's doing a lot of editing. And not only is it doing a lot of editing, it's doing a lot of writing. I am angry, Michael. I am angry at ChatGPT because it has stolen my beloved EM dash. I enjoyed using the EM dash, but now AI uses it in like every other sentence. It is such a tell that somebody has written something with ChatGPT. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or not.
I don't know that I feel as violently passionate about the M dash as you do, but I support it. Like I support that being what it is. It's a tricky thing, man. It's such a tricky thing, not only from a curriculum standpoint, but also from a preaching standpoint. You know, like it really, really is. I think it is a reasonable. I think it's a reasonable expectation that people have when they come to a small group or just come to church and listen to a sermon. It's a reasonable expectation that the person or people who put together whatever they're hearing or reading, that it was not generated by a computer. That's where I think that they should expect that. And I fear that might in the future become an unreasonable expectation, just because of the proliferation. Like it's just going to be everywhere, and people are using it. But maybe it's back to your point too. You can tell when something has been rushed. I think more times than not, that is one of the catalysts for artificial intelligence in this world, is preaching every week or writing curriculum. It is such a grind that there comes a point, I think, for a lot of people where you just think, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I got to get something on the page. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. Please resist that temptation. It's you're not writing anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
You're not a writer if you're doing that. So I would, in the same way, I would rather hear music that's just a little, little off key or didn't quite hit the note, but there's soul and there's passion to it. You can tell that person is really singing. There's no auto tune like correcting every little thing. That song actually sounds better to the ear because you can feel the passion in it. And it is the same with your writing. It may not be exact. It may not be 100% precise, but it's going to be better writing if it's yours. You're just going to be able to tell. Don't use AI to auto-tune all of the faults out of your writing, because what you're doing is you're pulling all the flavor out as well.
Yeah, that's well said.
So it's too shallow. It's not relatable. It's poorly written. Another gripe, and I'm really curious how you do this at Rooted, because your curriculum is broadly used, not just by one specific tribe, but by multiple different groups. So the fourth gripe is this is not our church doctrine. Yeah. So how do you address this when you're producing the Rooted experience?
It is tricky. It's tricky because you want to walk the line between having a hard stance on things that are orthodox, universally believed by Christians, and at the same time, not getting into such theological and doctrinal minutia that it alienates people. So I think one of the things that you recognize from the beginning is you just have to take it as a given that you're not going to be able to please everybody. And it's a fool's errand to say we're going to try to please everybody. But beyond that, one of the statements that we make that guides us in this is we typically say the source of our unity gets the spotlight. So we tend to ask the question, what are the things that we have in common as evangelical Christians? And that's what we want to write about. And that's what we want to have people gather around. So, for potentially super divisive issues, we're likely not going to spend a lot of time on issues like that. We're going to try and make sure that what unifies us gets the spotlight. Now, having said that, I do think that it is a good lesson in sort of the theological triage mindset of trying to diagnose, what's a tier 1 issue, what's a tier 2 issue, a tier 3 issue. So when you do produce something that's meant to be broadly used, you really have to ask those difficult questions and then try and come down on it. One more thing I would say about this is that some of that particular criticism also has to do with the church leader who is making decisions on behalf of the groups in their church about what it is they're going to study. If that is a criticism that arises from within the church, not always, you can't say always, but it very well could be that might be just a little signpost to say, brother, you probably should be a little bit more careful in vetting what it is that you put out there in front of your groups. I want to say it probably shouldn't get that far.
That's a really good point. It speaks more to the vetting process than the curriculum, certainly. So I am writing some curriculum right now, actually, on Romans. It's going to be on the entire book.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
16 weeks, 16 chapters of Romans. I just finished Romans 9.
Woof.
And I know. And I walked away from that video and everything that I did. And I'm like, I hope I didn't butcher this chapter of the Bible. Talk about tough.
Yeah.
Like it's probably the most controversial chapter of the entire
For
Bible.
Sure.
And here I am trying to write curriculum around it. I'm like, what am I doing? But we'll see. We'll see. Sam at churchanswers.com if you're listening to this after purchasing the Romans curriculum.
Good for you for writing it. I mean, I think there's something to be said that you actually put something down about Romans 9. I mean, the classic Roman sermon series is that you do 4 weeks on Romans 8 and then people show up and, here we are at the end of chapter 10. And
yes. Yes. No, I didn't skip it. I did not skip it. So
good for you.
Shallow. It's too shallow. It's not relatable. It's poorly written. This is not our church doctrine. Oh man. Number 5. I think the complainers have a point. It's too long.
I agree.
I've read a lot of curriculum that is just like, this is going to take me 2 hours to read, and I should not have to read for 2 hours to prepare a lesson.
I agree with you. It does feel like that can be a legitimate criticism. You've got to work realistically with both the given time frame and the attention span of people. So you have to have a realistic mindset about what that is. And I also think I keep coming back to this. It's a refrain in all of these, but I do think that there's something that a church leader can do in this regard, and it is, I think, in your groups, help your group leaders understand what is the win of our groups. The main thing, what are we trying to accomplish? If you had to force rank them, what is it? Is it education? Is it fellowship? Is it prayer? If you force rank those for your leaders, one of the things that force ranking does is it frees your leader up to know what they can cut. So if you say to your leader, no matter what else happens, the reason we're here is to fellowship with one another. Well, then all of a sudden that leader feels the load off of his or her mind of saying, I don't actually have to get through all of the curriculum lesson. What I've got to do, though, is make sure that people have 20 minutes to hang out together. I got to do that. So that's one of the ways that can be helped with that is just setting what the win is. What are we really trying to accomplish here in these groups?
That is an excellent idea. If you have not force ranked your priorities for the educational system of the church, your group structure,
Right.
your curriculum, whatever it is, do that exercise. That's worth the weight in gold right there. Because I bet if you did that with my team right now, the force rankings would probably look different.
See,
each person would
right.
probably rank things in a different way.
Right.
I bet even at my church, as healthy as we are, we're in a great place. I bet that we would have some different priorities there when it comes to groups. Really good stuff. All right. Shallow, not relatable, poorly written. It's not our church doctrine. Too long. And then, Michael, boring. Like, why are so many Christian writers so boring?
I don't know. Like, I legitimately don't know. They don't have to be, they really don't have to be. You would want to, this is sort of I think, hearkening back earlier in the conversation, right? It's tough to think as a writer, if you're not excited about something, it's tough to believe that the people reading this stuff are actually going to enjoy it too. You really should. You should enjoy it. Enjoy as a curriculum preparer. You should actually enjoy and get excited about what it is that you're writing. It shouldn't feel dry and dusty. So I think there's legitimacy to this one too, and it can be, I think, a commentary on the kinds of curriculum that's being produced.
So walk us through a little bit about Rooted's philosophy here. So you've heard the complaints. I know you've heard all of these before. This is your world. This is what you do. How is Rooted addressing people who might have some of these common gripes?
Well, so through all different kinds of ways. But let me just talk about one of them, just one of them, because I think this one thing addresses a lot of these things. And it's going to sound so simple when we say it. It is through the Rooted experience, the 10-week Rooted experience. One of the things that we really want to do is make room and opportunity for people to connect deeply with one another. And the way that we do that is by planning time in each group meeting for people to intentionally share their faith story. What made you who you are, and what brought you to this place, like to this group. Now, that often means that groups doing Rooted probably go longer than 45 minutes. It's more like 90 minutes. But that thing right there of having people intentionally, vulnerably, authentically share who they are and what's happening with them, it brings a richness to the other components. It makes it feel not shallow because you're connecting deeply with people. It engages you at multiple levels. So it engages you emotionally as well as intellectually. So it's not boring anymore. So to forge that relational connection, I think and to do it intentionally in the structure of the discipleship strategy that you have, really does address, I think, a lot of those things.
Well, good stuff from Michael Kelley, the executive director of the Rooted Network. Go check out what they have to offer at experiencerooted.com/church answers. There is a link in the show notes as well. We also want to thank our sponsor, Upward. Upward is never boring, completely relatable, doctrinally sound. It's never too long because, man, you're having a blast. So I know we're talking about curriculum, but Upward Sports, and they're the answer to everything too. So go check out what they have to offer. They've got pickleball. Michael, you ever played pickleball?
Man, I love pickleball. I had no idea that you could do Upward pickleball. That's amazing.
When's Rooted pickleball coming out? That's what.
It's a great question.
Actually, here's what you do. You start with Upward Pickleball. You get people involved in your church, and then you start one of your groups with the Rooted curriculum.
Right on.
So you do outreach with Upward, and then once you start assimilating people, you go to Rooted. So this is like your 1-2 comp. This is like exactly what you need
It's
here.
an entree. That's it.
Yeah, and their newest offering is pickleball. They've got free net sets, which is really hard to say, but I think people know what I'm
Yep.
saying when I say it. 2 free net sets. They've only got a limited amount of supplies. So if you want to claim those net sets, go to upward.org/pickleball. Upward.org/pickleball. You can be the neighborhood church. And now's the time to start preparing for 2026, start the budgeting, start the planning. Go ahead and get in line for Upward Pickleball. So upward.org/pickleball. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. Thank you, Michael, for once again being on the show. Always love having Michael on the show. He's a longtime friend, incredible writer, and obviously what they're doing with the Rooted Experience is something that I think every church should take part in. We've got another episode coming up here soon, as we always do. We're up to 2 episodes a week. Started that at the beginning of 2026. I've been having a lot of fun with it. We really appreciate all of you listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.